The year is 1519. Imagine sailing toward a city floating on water, larger than Paris, cleaner than London, and more organized than Venice. Welcome to Tenochtitlan, the epicenter of an empire that defied the laws of nature. But to understand the greatness of the Aztecs, we must not look at their pyramids, but at their fear. For these people, the universe was not a safe place. It was a fragile machine hanging by a thread. They believed we lived under the fifth sun, an era destined to end in cataclysm if the cosmic engine ran out of energy. This energy, called teirtl, flowed through everything: the wind, the corn, and above all, human blood. Today, we cross the bridge of time to discover that their rituals were not acts of cruelty, but of terrifying responsibility. The mission to prevent the sun from going out and the world from falling into eternal darkness. Get ready to decode the secret of blood and stars. Before time existed, there was silence. The gods gathered in the darkness of Teotihuacan, the city where legends are born, with a distressing question: who will take charge of lighting the world? 4 eras, 4 previous suns had already failed, destroyed by jaguars, winds, and fire. For the 5th sun to be born, a voluntary sacrifice was needed. 2 gods offered themselves: Tecusistecult, wealthy and proud, dressed in quetzal feathers and gold, and Nanahuatzin, the humble god, covered in sores and dressed in paper. For 4 days, they performed penance. While the proud one offered gold thorns and jewels, the humble one offered his own blood and sincerity. The time came. The sacred fire burned with a force that made the earth tremble. Tecusistecult, the arrogant, tried to jump 4 times, but fear paralyzed him. The heat was unbearable. Then, Nanahuatzin, without hesitation, threw himself into the center of the flames. His body was consumed, and from the ashes the brightest solar disk ever seen emerged. Ashamed, the wealthy god jumped after him, becoming only the moon. But there was a problem. The sun did not move. It was static in the sky, burning the earth. The gods understood the final and terrible lesson. For the sun to move and life to prosper, blood must be constantly given. Thus was born the sacred debt of men. For the Aztecs, truth was not found in words, but in beauty. They had a phrase to define art and communication with the divine: in Xochitl, in Cuicatl, which means flower and song. They believed that life on earth was fleeting, like a dream, and that the only real thing we could offer the gods was our creativity. Their rituals were not always about blood. Many were festivals of color and sound. The smoke of copal, considered the breath of the earth, flooded the temples to purify the space. The priests, who were also poets and musicians, used seashells and sacred drums to synchronize the human heartbeat with the rhythm of the universe. Dance was not a performance, it was a prayer in motion. Every step, every quetzal feather waving in the wind, was a message sent to heaven. As the poet King Nezahualcóyotl wrote, "Are men perhaps real? That is why our song is no longer real." In this world of shadows, art was the only way to leave an eternal mark. Forget what you know about modern sports. For the Aztecs, Ulama, or the ball game, was not a competition for personal glory, but a cosmic battle for the survival of the day. The court represented the universe, and the rubber ball, heavy and lethal, was the sun itself traveling through the stars. Players could not use their hands or feet, only their hips, elbows, and knees, symbolizing that man does not control destiny, but is an instrument of it. Each strike was an effort to keep the sun god in motion, preventing it from falling into the underworld of darkness. The sound of the ball hitting the stone walls was the echo of celestial thunder. In the stands, there was absolute silence. It was believed that if the ball stopped, time itself could stop. The captain who managed to pass the ball through the stone ring did not just win a game, he became a hero who had saved the sun for one more cycle. In this ritual, Life and death bounced off every wall. We come to the point that is most uncomfortable for history: human sacrifice. But to understand it, we must erase our modern ideas of good and evil. For an Aztec, sacrifice was a nexlawali, which literally means debt payment. They believed that since the gods gave their lives to create us, we had to return the favor so that the earth would continue to bear fruit. The one chosen for sacrifice was not always a forced victim. Often he was the Ixiptla, the living representative of the god on earth. For months, he was treated as a deity, fed the finest delicacies, and honored by the people. The final moment was not seen as a murder, but as a release of vital energy into the cosmos. Blood was not waste, it was the precious water that fed the sun. In their worldview, the individual was nothing compared to the survival of the species and the movement of the stars. It was a blood pact that kept the breath of the earth flowing. A brutal reminder that, in ancient Mexico, the life of one was the price of the existence of all. Imagine that the calendar comes to an end, and there is no guarantee that tomorrow will exist. Every 52 years, the heart of the empire stopped in a ritual of absolute suspense, the new fire ceremony. For the Aztecs, this was the moment when the cycle of life could break forever. As the sun set, all the fires in the city were extinguished. Houses were left in darkness, furniture was destroyed, and people climbed onto their rooftops, waiting in terrifying silence. They believed that if the fire was not born again that night, the tzitzimime, skeletal star demons, would descend from the sky to devour humanity. At the summit of the Hill of the Star, the priests watched the Pleiades. When the stars reached the center of the sky, the critical moment arrived. Over the chest of a sacred warrior, wood was rubbed until a single spark conquered the darkness. The new fire was born. Within seconds, swift runners carried that flame from the mountain to the great temple, and from there to every home in the empire. Life had been renewed for another 52-year cycle. The sun would rise again. The contract with the gods remained in force. The Aztec Empire did not end with the fall of Tenochtitlan. It transformed. That sacred debt to the universe, that respect for the sun, and that search for beauty in flower and song live on in Mexico's DNA. We see it in our plazas, in our art, and in the way we celebrate life in the presence of death. The Aztecs taught us that we are the guardians of a divine spark, and that as long as we continue to create and remember, the sun will never stop rising. Thank you for joining us on this journey to the heart of ancient Mexico. If you want to discover more stories that cross borders, subscribe and be part of this adventure. This is Mexico Beyond Borders.